Hello, hi to all the Lexic followers and all to our clients. Thank you very much for joining us here today. We are down in Brighton with James. But firstly, I just wanted to introduce myself, as some of you may not have seen me before. My name is Georgie. I'm the new head of client development at Lexic. And for anyone that doesn't know what Lexic is, we are an occupational psychology consultancy that specialises in neurodiversity within the workplace. And one thing we love to do here at Lexic is share inspirational stories and obviously drive awareness, to drive awareness basically across our community. So, James, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. My name's James. I'm based in Brighton. I have a lovely wife, Emma, and 2-year-old son, Dexter.
Yeah.
I'm self-employed, and I had an accident in October 2018, which changed my life and my family's life pretty significantly.
Okay, so do you want to tell the audience what happened in October 2018?
Yeah, it was a normal Friday. I went to the gym and was training for a national competition, Olympic weightlifting competition. And I was doing the same lift I'd done hundreds of times before, what's called a snatch lift, where you pull the bar up from a deadlift position and hold it overhead and stand up with it. Yeah. And ultimately, as I tried to stand up, the bar came down on my back. I thought at the time it was just a glancing blow. Tried to stand up and just couldn't get up. Just realised that I was paralysed from the waist down immediately. It just happened in a couple of seconds. I was conscious throughout. Didn't lose any blood or anything, but it ultimately changed the course of my life forever.
And one thing when we actually spoke on the phone, which I hadn't brought up before, is that you mentioned it majorly hit you when your partner actually turned up, your partner and kid. Is that when it really kind of...
Yeah, so I mean, to begin with, because I was lifting as part of a team, and the team are made up of physios and kind of people who know first aid, and at the time they were, saying the right things, that, it could be spinal shock, you never know, you don't necessarily know what's happened. And I was kind of, quite happy with that. But as we were waiting for the paramedics, my wife and son had come down. The gym had called them at the same time, and they arrived first. Okay. And it was seeing my son crying, and my wife, just when I was kind of almost lifeless on the floor, they kind of come to terms with the fact quite quickly that this could be quite major, and this could, really affect the route our life's going to take. Yeah. When, we thought, or I thought at least, I knew what to expect over the next, months and years.
Yeah, and how can you, tell us all how it has impacted your life?
I mean, quite significantly. In the short term, it was. I didn't go home for the next 4 months. So I'd every intention of being home just after lunch that Friday. I didn't get home until the middle of February. So the focus was very much on, first of all, how serious is it? I went in for surgery for about 7 hours, which was obviously quite a scary time for my family, not knowing how that was going to pan out. Coming out of surgery, in the weeks that followed, we were told by my surgeon and by the nurses that we won't know the severity of the condition immediately. Yeah. So then it's a case of kind of trying to wiggle toes and trying to work out what's happening, and you hear stories coming in through friends and family of other people that have been in the same situation who have made a full recovery after 4 weeks. So you're looking for that 4-week mark, and then you're waiting for the 6-week mark. Yeah. And then, after about 2 months, you kind of think, okay, it doesn't look like it's going to change. And then the focus is, okay, let's try and make the best out of the situation, get back home and try and lead the life that I wanted to lead before the accident. Okay,
and again, something else was mentioned before is about a tick list. So what was your tick list to keep you going? Obviously it kept you motivated, but what, can you tell us a little bit more about that tick list process to keep you kind of on the track?
Yeah, so I was very, very lucky when I was in hospital. I had lots of visits from friends and family, and it kind of got me thinking that to give myself some motivation and some focus, it'd be nice for each of the people that came to see me of working out, what I was going to do with them. And there was friends that I used to go for dinner with, so maybe I'll go to dinner with them again. My son Dexter, I always enjoyed picking him up and playing with him. Yeah. And, that was very, very far away from where I was lying in bed, not being able to move at all. So just picking him up was on the list. So it was a very kind of wide-ranging list, from things like going out for a burger to going on a holiday somewhere far afield, and getting through that tick list was my focus. And within the first week, I think I ticked off half a dozen things. It was
really?
right. Let's do this now. I really, wanted to keep going.
Okay. And in regards to the first thing you've had a massive change in your life, and I appreciate it might be quite hard to talk about, but can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of the darker times and the kind of challenges that have come since the accident?
Yeah, sure. So I think the darker times were the initial, that first half an hour where it's just such a surprise that this has happened to you. You just don't expect it. You're doing the same thing you're doing all the time, and then this happened. So that was a very, very dark time. Then, as I said, the focus switched to, okay, go for surgery and find out how serious this is. The darker time then came at the point 2 months later, I think, for me, where I really realised that it's unlikely that I'm going to improve. And you look at the statistics that I saw was that less than 1% of people were going to make a recovery. And that's quite a big number, as long as you think, I don't want to be, don't want to read too much in statistics. That's quite, quite a big number to overcome. So that was it for me. And also, I think a darker time for a lot of people in the spinal community is actually when you move out of rehab, which is a very comfortable environment. You're learning how to live your life again. You make friends in rehab, and you adjust, and then you go home to an unadapted house, to a community who potentially look at you a bit differently. That again is, I wouldn't say as dark a time, but certainly a milestone, certainly a time where you think, this is a bit of a tricky situation.
One thing which obviously has changed your life massively is obviously you're now in a wheelchair, and in regards to that, adaptations have to be put in place. So in order for you to live your normal everyday life at home and at work, can you tell us a little bit about the changes you made? But also, can you tell us a little bit about the equipment that you use, etc.?
Sure. So in terms of the equipment, I was very lucky that the gym and my family did some fundraising for me, so I was able to get a really kind of lightweight wheelchair, which I think is so important. If you've got a heavy, cumbersome chair, you can't, it's hard to negotiate curbs, it's just very hard to move around, and as strong as you may be, if it doesn't fit you properly, then it's just not going to be an easy chair to use. So I was very lucky that I got a tailor-made chair made of titanium and carbon fibre that's ultra light. It's only 4 kilos, which I think normal chairs nearer 20. It's tailor-made to me, so it's a bit like a suit, so it tapers in, it hugs me on the hips, which means I've got more control left and right. The important thing is that it folds up nice and small, and I can lift it into the car. So as I go into my car, I take the cushion off, I fold up the back, take the wheels off, and then just throw it in the passenger seat. And it's not something you can do with every chair. Additionally to that, I have a car which is hand controlled, so it's a normal automatic car that my wife can drive, and then for me it's got push pull for the accelerator and brake, and then you use a ball on the steering wheel to turn, which has been fantastic, and that's changed things massively, because driving was important to me before. I need to drive for work, and just having that independence was important. Aside from that, I also kind of look at adapted ways of getting around. So I have a couple of friends who live in a flat which is up 4 stories with no lift. So it was a challenge, and I'd be offered piggybacks and being picked up in the chair, and that didn't really sit right. Actually, they did lift me in the chair the first time, and it was so scary. I'll just never ever do that again. So because I've always been quite keen that going to the gym and getting as strong as I can on my upper body, I can mitigate any issues with my lower body. If I can get up off the floor into my chair, or I can pick my son up with one arm, then it makes life easier. So I started wheelbarrow walking. So I start off in like a on the floor in press up position. Someone will grab my legs from behind, and then I'll walk with my hands, and someone else will hold my legs. And just being able to do this, it makes you feel like I've got up the stairs on my own. Someone has helped me, but I've done that route on my own. Then someone will bring the chair up afterwards, and it's mentally it helped me a lot more. And it's a fun thing to do, and it's another adaptation, and it's nice to kind of look at these ways of adapting. I've got plans this year. I'm going to do a half marathon in a few weeks' time in Brighton. And then I've got plans to do a route, an off-road route where I do ultimately a half marathon every day in a wheelchair, which I don't believe that anyone that's been paralysed has done before. And again, just being able to adapt the chair to put on some bigger wheels and be able to go across country and do these things and do kind of like wheelchair hikings, we're going to call it. I think it's important to have these adaptations and to really think outside the box. You're so often, particularly in hospital, told you'll never walk again, you can't do this, you can't do that. And in fact, I was told before I even went in for surgery I'll never walk again, which was crazy. Then trying to do things that other people, able-bodied people, can't do is quite nice. You know, is to say, okay, well, you know, you said I'd never walk again, but you know, I can do this.
Yeah. So neurodiversity is obviously an area we specialise in lexic. Neurodiversity, I'm neurodiverse myself. It's very much an invisible disability. Can you just tell the audience and tell us all about the invisible, disabilities that come with your condition?
Yeah, sure. So I, as well as running my own business, I also work for the Spinal Injury Association. So I do peer support and visit people in hospital and in the community who also have a spinal injury. And I think what I've learned from my own experience and from the experience of others is actually it is the invisible disabilities that are those which are harder to contend with. And if you ask someone what they would want to change, it probably wouldn't be the fact they can't walk or they're sat in a wheelchair. It would be the invisible disabilities. So the big one is mental health. You know, it's quite easy to slip into kind of a dark place in terms of thinking what life could have been rather than the route your life's taken now. For me, the bigger issues is because I'm paralysed from the waist down. I have a problem. Well, I don't have half my core, which it's crazy to think how much influence that has. So in terms of balance, you know, it's very, very hard. Even putting on a pair of socks, you find that you quite often fall over. So balance, and also being able to pick things up, you know, in front of you like this, it's a big impact. And then because you have so much going on below the waist, so bladder and bowel functions completely change, going to the toilet is completely different, and that again for rehab is really the main focus. The focus you would expect is to get you walking again, which it's not. It's to kind of manage how you go to the toilet on a daily basis, because that's ultimately the most important thing. You know, you're not going to want to go out if you're not comfortable that you can't control bodily functions. So it is those things. So I'd say not being able to walk is maybe 6th or 7th on the list of things above, for me, you know, balance, control, and then, you know, bladder and bowel function are much more important, and, you know, fertility as well. Not, you know, all these things change with the condition. Not being able to walk is only the one that people see. And
I was going to say, what you did mention before we were chatting earlier was the fact of going on holiday. The fact that your packs for going to the toilet take up, you know,
half a suitcase now. Exactly. Just half a suitcase is gone just through medical supplies, and I don't actually take any medications on a daily basis. I think I'm one of the few people that's lucky enough to do that. It's all medical supplies and other things that are just to make your life comfortable, which is crazy. So it means a week's holiday now is ultimately an extra bag, which is something again you took for granted before, that you didn't need all these extra things.
And again, something I probably wouldn't even think about as an able-bodied person.
Absolutely,
you just take for granted. So, you know, from lots of conversations that we've had, you are an incredibly inspirational person. Your motivation and your zest for life is, you know, it's oozing from you. So in regards, how do you keep so motivated?
I think it is, in hospital I did a lot of reading, kind of a lot of assessing of things, and realised that it's no point kind of missing what hasn't happened. Life's taken a different route, and actually we have everything here that you know we need to make us happy. You know, people are very, very quick to wish away time and to hope for something in the future, and to want a better job and want another car and all of these things. And actually, you know, particularly if you're lucky enough to have a family, then it's important to take the time to enjoy that. I think a lot of people in this situation have realised how finite life is and how quickly things can change, and it's very, very important that you make the most of it. So now I don't think I necessarily took things for granted before, but now I certainly don't. I enjoy every minute of the day, and I don't want to waste any time. And I think if you can, you should spend as much time with the people you love as you can. You should be doing the job that you want, and it now for me doesn't make sense why you would spend all day doing something you don't want to do. You might as well enjoy your life, because it's not here for long.
That's amazing. And another thing that I've mentioned, or haven't mentioned actually yet, is you have a blog.
So it started through in hospital. So one of the people I saw in hospital was, I saw a counsellor for a brief time, and they talked about writing things down, and I thought, well, let's see if I can actually write this and share. I had a lot of people who were contacting me on text and WhatsApp and Facebook, and sorry to hear what's happened to your accident. People that I spoke to a lot, people that I hadn't heard from years, and for some reason they wanted to talk to me now, and it was quite a lot. People think in hospital you're sat doing nothing. Actually, it's quite busy. You're seeing physios, you're seeing consultants, you're trying to work out your new life. So it was it seemed like a good idea to write a blog where I could answer all the questions that people were asking, rather than writing people independently. Because I would find as well that someone would ask how's things, and I'd say yes, today's a great day, and I've done this and I've done that, and then the next day might be a terrible day. And then do I go back and correct it and say, oh, by the way, today's the worst day? Whereas on the blog I can just be quite succinct and just say, this is what I've been up to, and actually not reply to everyone independently. So it helped. It was therapeutic. I shared the good and the bad. The blog was called 0.9% because that was the statistic I had heard of the chances of recovery. I stopped the blog when I left hospital. Purely because it felt that the life I was leading, I still wanted. I built up the community of people who were following me and were grateful for me writing the blog, and I didn't want to let them down. But I felt that pictures and videos would be more relevant. So I started to put it on Instagram, which is ultimately a photo blogging site. And continued it on there, and that has enabled me to meet more people in the community and kind of share my story a bit wider and do some kind of fun things, as well as kind of talk about the darker times. So the blog continued onto Instagram after I left hospital, but initially it was a very much a therapeutic thing that I did, and it's something it will always be nice to look back on. Dexter was a year old. He won't ever remember me before the accident. But I've got something to show him to talk about, what happened those first few weeks and months.
And also, I guess it's quite easy to forget how you felt. So if you don't write it down, life goes on and your mindset changes. So.
Yeah, and I think in hospital it was always about, as I mentioned before with the list, having that focus really helped move you forward. And writing lists of things that could potentially go into a blog or maybe a book one day, funny things that had happened today. Just having those lists and having that focus took your mind away from, counting ceiling tiles and, wondering where the next meal is and all the kind of mundane things which do tend to happen in hospital. It's like, right, I'm going to focus on something else now. And it really, really helped. And I would advise anyone to do it.
That's awesome. And one of the other things I saw in your blog is that you actually mentioned meditation. So I'm a true believer in meditation myself, as being a neurodiverse and a little bit ADHD. I find that I can be very hectic and I need to kind of slow down my pace of life. And it's something we recommend to a number of our clients as well. So are you able to tell us a little bit more about the techniques that you use with meditation and just tell you how you got into meditation itself?
Yeah, sure. So leading up to the accident, I was very interested in trying lots of different sports and lots of different ways of keeping fit, and one of those ways was yoga. And I really, really enjoyed it, and it felt like it was good for my body and for my mind. At the end of each yoga session, you'd tend to have 10-15 minutes relaxation and meditation. My yoga teacher, who's actually a very good friend as well, she has a podcast where it has meditations on it. It can be breathing meditations, it can be lots of different types, and I'd always listen to them a bit before going to hospital, maybe once a week. I listened to them a lot more in hospital and kind of set aside some time. I had a daily planner in hospital. My sister made me, being a typical teacher. And at 11 o'clock every day was meditation time. I just take 10 minutes out, headphones in, just listen to the podcast meditation, and just take some time for myself and just try and you'll know, the hardest thing, and I think people think what people worry about is that it's very hard just to get rid of all your thoughts.
Yeah.
Whereas you learn, as you meditate more, that actually you welcome the thoughts and then you just kind of let them go. And improving on that really, really helped. Just having that 10 minutes a day, just out of the hospital environment, just trying to clear my head or just listen to what Rosie was saying.
Yeah.
It really, really helped.
Okay,
Coming out of hospital, I now go, there's a local Buddhist centre here, and I go to guided meditation once a week, and that really helps. I think for me, I need to be guided. I need someone to talk me through what I'm doing. But just taking that time out, it's very easy to say you're too busy. I think it's easier to look at things that, say it's not a priority for me. And for me, meditation has become a priority because it's really helped my mental health.
Okay, and that's one thing we can share Rosie's podcast details on here as well. So if anyone wants to have a listen, which I think is a really good thing. So in regards to kind of statistics, so again, another thing you mentioned to me, which I wasn't aware of, obviously the statistics of those who are in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Are you able to kind of expand on those statistics and tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So it's the statistics, they vary. I think that the reporting has changed. There was news out in the last few months that actually spinal injury has been hugely underreported by a significant amount. So I think the statistics are changing, but those that are quite interesting are the ones coming out of the US. And the reason they were interesting to me is when I read them in hospital, it felt like I was there.
Okay.
So 80% of people that have a spinal injury are apparently men. It was late 20s, early 30s. My wife was very keen to tell me that I'm not early 30s anymore, but I kind of felt that I was within that. And again, lots of sporting accidents. I think 20% sporting accidents. So it does seem to. I think it's changing. I think there's more traffic accidents now, but there's also, as we said, as we discussed earlier, there's so much improvement for medicine that whereas before, maybe 30 years ago, 80% of people would be an injury like mine, which is kind of no sensational movement below the injury.
Yeah.
Now 80% will see some improvement. So there's huge leaps forward in the way spinal injury is treated initially, and then the rehab that follows it. And I'm very excited for the future. I think there's lots of exciting developments, and I believe that spinal injury will change, and one day, I hope it won't become a thing. I think it's, we're really moving close to that direction.
Okay. And have you got anything in plan? I think you mentioned that you've got something kind of potentially next year that's lined up.
I'm hoping to go to be part of a clinical trial next year.
Oh, wow.
Very appreciative to be chosen on that. It's kind of a stimulation of the above and below the injury to kind of encourage the parts of the body that aren't any longer working to start moving again. Again, it's early days, but just being part of that science and is I feel very lucky to be able to do it. So I'm looking forward to that for the future.
So one thing, obviously, you've had massive support from other external charities. Did you want to kind of tell us a little bit more about charity that you've worked with or helped you along your journey so far? Yeah,
so there's the Holy Trinity with spinal injury. There's Aspire, there is Backup, and there is a charity called Spinal Injury Association.
Okay.
The Spinal Injury Association was they ultimately go in and do peer support and speak to people who are newly injured, people in the community, and this is something that I've done myself now as well. The reason I've done it is I think, like a lot of newly injured people, didn't really want to see anyone in a wheelchair in the first few weeks. You don't want to admit that that's going to be your position. When I did eventually want to see someone, I met a guy called Carl who was in a similar situation to me. So my impressions of people in a wheelchair up until this point where it was generally older people and it wasn't me, whereas this guy came in similar age to me, also a dad with a young daughter, and he was there doing wheelies, talking about the car he drove and doing all these things that I thought that I might not be able to do. And that was a real turning point for me, and I thought to be able to do that for other people was it's really something quite nice about it. It's not an altruistic necessary thing to do. It makes me feel good as well, but I think it really does help people, and we all go through we seem to go through a similar journey. We don't really want to admit it's going to happen. You come to terms with it, and then once you've seen someone in that situation who kind of talks to you on your level as your peer. It really helps. As much as the surgeons and the physios and all the medical professionals know, they really don't know what it's like to be in that position. And the only person who does is someone else in a wheelchair who's got a spinal injury similar to yours. So to be part of that team and to be part of the peer support team at Spinal Injury Association has been fantastic. And I really appreciate the charity for what it is.
And it's amazing, even though there's no specific direct correlation with neurodiversity and obviously having a physical disability, I work amongst people who are, I find, incredibly inspirational. They are neurodiverse themselves and they are leaders, they are, they're changing the world. And, the fact that you're able to work with, again, people who are inspiring you, they are going through similar challenges and facing similar things, and that really keeps you going. I have to be honest, the people I'm working with keep me going, keep me kind of thriving for what the next kind of step up the ladder is for me. So, I think that's really interesting that there is synergies.
Absolutely, and I think it's no one chooses to be part of this community, but I just see so much resilience and so much positivity. Obviously you do go in, you see people that are struggling, of course, but the positivity and the kind of the resilience of the human spirit, and actually because so many people are in this position through sporting injuries and stuff, they've already got that mindset that they've got that focus. So it's inspiring. And it's a community that is incredible, and it amazes me every day. Yeah,
that's awesome. So since you've had your accident, obviously your direction in life has changed slightly, and you're looking to drive awareness.
Yes.
Across the kind of the country, the world, for spinal conditions.
Yes.
What are you currently doing so far?
As well as the Instagram community, I am working for the Spinal Injury Association, and so to visit patients. And I think it's important that we start, at the kind of ground level, ultimately helping independent people, helping people become independent as they go along this journey. It is a scary journey. Not everyone has, the support network that can help. So being part of that community is really important. I just any opportunity I just have to kind of spread awareness and speak to people about it. Yeah,
that's awesome. So what piece of advice would you give to everyone out there?
I think it would be, as we said earlier, just to kind of enjoy every moment. I think it's very, very easy to take things for granted and to not appreciate what we have. You do see people just kind of going through life, maybe not as happy with things as they could be, and I think the time to change things is now. If you're not happy doing something and it's at all possible for you to change it, that should happen. And also, I think as though the route has changed for me. I hadn't envisaged being in a wheelchair, being in this position. Ultimately, nothing important has changed. I still have I'm still the same person. I still have the same dreams. I still have the same family. And I think it would not be right to be for it to get you down. I think quite the opposite. I think it's important to enjoy stuff. And
another thing, actually, I take for granted just going to the cinema, going shopping. Even just, as I said, getting to work. I just jump on the tube, jump the train. How has that changed for you in regards, let's say, talk about going to the cinema or something? Yeah, so it's cinemas are quite good, and kind of big chain restaurants are good because they've been built for disabled access. And cinemas, I think I get cheaper tickets because my wife's my carer as well, so that's good. You get better seats. I think the tube would be scary. I think you do with a lot of things. So when I go out to a restaurant with friends or go to a pub, particularly here in Brighton, I need to do my research beforehand. Do they have a disabled toilet? Is it stepped access? The spontaneity has been taken out of it. And the same if I went up to London on the tubes. I think they are trying to put lifts in each tube station, but it's not there yet. No. So being stuck on a tube, there's just unless you ask someone for a wheelbarrow walk, it's not going to happen. You can't get off. But there's lots of things. So one of the campaigns I've done recently is kind of like a now I'm in a wheelchair campaign, trying to look at the brighter side and the funnier side of things. Okay. One of the things is my trainers stay white now because they never touch the floor. I can carry a whole load of washing on my lap. Okay. That's my wife says I don't do it enough, but I can do.
I always know when the floor isn't flat.
Okay.
Because I'll just roll down, so I could always be a human spirit level. So there's lots of weird and wonderful things that you learn in this community, and it's important to look at the funnier side of things.
The brighter side, the funny side.
One of the funny things that happened to me in hospital was whenever I'd see a new consultant or a new nurse, they would always, if they were trying to work out height and weight, they'd say, "Oh, you're quite a tall man, aren't you?" I was like, always 5'7". I was like, no, I'm not. But for some reason, now I'm sat down or lying down, I look tall. Yeah. So as far as if anyone asks, I'm 6'4" now, because no one seems to know any different. No. So I think you've got to look at the funnier side of the adaptions, and things that I say, like cinema tickets are better, flying's better.
Okay.
Go whiz through security. I'm the first on the plane now. There are difficult things, but we live in a country, I think, that is trying its best. I think it needs help. Workplaces need improvement, and I think the community needs improvement. But I do genuinely believe that we're slowly getting towards where we need to be.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot that could be changed.
So one thing I really believe actually is 2020 is going to be huge for neurodiversity, but also huge for physical disabilities. I've been going to many conferences in 2019, and it's been a huge discussion about the Purple Pound and where that money is going to be put. So, I've got to say I'm really excited for the future of yourself, and it's amazing to meet somebody who has had a extremely life-changing event, but is absolutely inspirational. It's key for us here at Lexit to share stories like yours and continue driving awareness.
Well, thank you so much for coming down to see me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.